Aegon was standing outside your chambers, waiting for you to finish getting dressed. In truth, it would be a miracle if you were anywhere near on time. He knew how long it took ladies to get themselves ready. He was also slightly nervous about the evening ahead. He had never actually had a romantic dinner with his wife. Eventually the doors opened, revealing your handmaidens, and finally, you. The king's eyes roamed over you, appreciating the sight of you and how you looked dressed up for their evening together. He cleared his throat, snapping out of the moment, and extended a hand towards you. "My lady, are you quite..." He tried to think of a compliment, but he couldn't think of a single one that truly described your beauty. "Quite perfect as always." Aegon took your hand and started to lead you down the hall, walking at your side. He was trying to keep in mind what a typical romantic evening should look like. Unfortunately, he had no prior experience to draw from. He would just have to try, and hope that he did not end up insulting you. As they walked, he tried to make conversation. "You look stunning tonight, my lady," he attempted a compliment, but he was so caught up in his own head that he could barely keep track of his thoughts, let alone the words tumbling out of his mouth. Aegon chuckled nervously, looking down at his feet as he led you through the halls of the keep. "What can I say? I thought I should be on my best behaviour for one day of the year," he replied. Finally, the two of you arrived at the dining room. The room was set up to appear as romantic as possible, with scented rose petals scattered about, and candles lighting up the entire room. Aegon looked over at you sheepishly, awaiting your reaction. Aegon visibly relaxed, seeing your reaction to the setting. "Not bad, eh?" he said, giving an awkward smile. "I wanted to do something nice for you." He motioned for you to take a seat at the table, and he sat opposite you. The dinner they were to share was laid out on the table. It was a full 3-course meal, with the very best food the Red Keep had to offer. Aegon cleared his throat, trying to think of something romantic to say as the servants began to pour out wine into their glasses. I'm happy you enjoy it," he said awkwardly. The first course was brought into the room and set in front of the two of them. Aegon tried to think of something to say as a conversation topic, but he couldn't think of anything. He just had to hope that the night would go smoothly. Aegon sat back in his chair slightly, with a small smile on his face. "Yes, well, I know most of the time I'm not the best husband," he conceded. The king took a sip of his wine. The alcohol was already slightly loosening his tongue. "But I thought, for one night, I would try to be a bit more romantic, you know?" Aegon chuckled, seeing the way you reacted to his comment. "Yes, really," he answered. He took another sip of his wine, beginning to feel more at ease. He knew how to flirt and charm, even with you, but being romantic was much more foreign to him. He was trying his best, though. "I don't want you to hate me, you know," he said suddenly, meeting your eyes with a somewhat serious expression. Aegon looked away for a moment, realizing that he hadn't been a very good husband. He did ignore you most of the time. In reality, he didn't really know how to be a good husband, or even what a good husband was supposed to be. He took another sip of his wine, the alcohol starting to loosen his tongue even further. "I know I'm not a good husband to you," he spoke quietly, not daring to look at you. "But I'm trying." Aegon looked at you a little in surprise as you reached over and took his hand into yours. He could not honestly remember the last time you had touched him. He swallowed, looking a bit anxious, but he did not pull his hand away. He held it, even squeezing your hand softly. The king took another deep breath, the feeling of you holding his hand and rubbing his palm sending tingles through his body. It had been a long time since anybody had touched him with any sort of affection. He had almost forgotten what it felt like to be touched like that. He squeezed your hand again, a little tighter this time. "I'm glad you did," he said quietly, looking at your face, before averting his gaze again. "I wanted you to have a good evening." Aegon cleared his throat nervously, his heart racing in his chest. You were holding his hand, a simple yet intimate action. He tried to calm himself by sipping his wine, hoping that the alcohol would soothe his nerves and help him compose himself. "I have a gift for you as well," he said, looking up at your face. "For Christmas, you know." Aegon chuckled as well, looking relieved that you had released his hand. He didn't want to admit that he had been caught off guard by the feeling of your touch, and he certainly didn't want to confess that he had liked it. No, No, it can't wait until morning, he said, a grin upon his face. Where's the fun in that? Christmas is happening now. Aegon stood up from his chair and walked around the table to your side, pulling your chair out to allow you to stand as well. Follow me, he said, holding out a hand to motion you to follow him across the room. Aegon's heart was still racing, though he tried to appear calm as he led you through the room to the Christmas tree in one corner. He paused in front of it, looking at you for a moment before he reached out and grabbed a small, wrapped box from the base of the tree. Here, he said finally, holding the box out to you. This is for you. Aegon looked at you expectantly, waiting for you to take the box. Go on, open it. I've been very excited to give it to you, he said. The truth was, he was not so sure what to expect of your reaction. He wasn't even entirely sure you would like the gift, but he hoped that you would. It would be a good start on his journey of being a more romantic husband. Aegon watched your face intently as you admired the wrapping of the box. He was a little nervous. He was trying so hard to be romantic, after all. He let out a little sigh of relief when he finally saw a smile upon your face, and you spoke his name softly. Go on, open it, he said again, this time more quietly. I hope you like what's inside. Aegon smiled as he watched you unwrap the present and finally got a look at his gift to you. It was a necklace, crafted from pure gold, with a small, glittering emerald resting just below the base of your neck. I thought the emerald would look nice with your eye colour, he said quietly, looking down at you with an almost shy expression on his face. Aegon chuckled softly, visibly relaxed by your reaction. He had been worried that you wouldn't like it, and your excitement made him quite happy. Here, let me help you put it on, he said, gently taking the necklace out of the box. Aegon cleared his throat, trying to maintain his composure, as you turned your back to him and moved your hair to the side, revealing your neck to him. He was close enough to you that he could see goosebumps on the exposed skin of your shoulders as he lifted the necklace up and carefully placed it around your neck. He was hyper-aware of your body, and his heart was racing in his chest, his hands almost shaking as he fumbled with the clasp. Feeling your neck under his fingers and sensing your closeness was sending his mind reeling. He was glad that you couldn't see his face in this moment. It was a struggle to focus on clipping the necklace when his body was having such an intense reaction to you. Finally, after a few more clumsy seconds, he managed to close the clasp, letting the necklace rest around your neck. Aegon's eyes were drawn to the emerald that now lay in the dip at the base of your throat. He had chosen it for how it complemented your eyes after all. He swallowed, letting his eyes move to your face after a few moments, and he smiled a little. It looks beautiful on you, he said quietly, stepping forward so that he was standing close to you. Like it should have always been there. Aegon couldn't help himself as his eyes slowly began to move lower. He swallowed hard, staring at the way the necklace lay against the upper part of your chest, the emerald stone resting just above the dip of your cleavage. He took in a deep breath, his heart still racing from how he had been affected by feeling the skin of your neck under his fingers. Aegon's gaze was focused on the way the emerald necklace lay against your chest, making him feel all kinds of things. It was almost as if he couldn't look away, until he suddenly blinked, realizing that he was gawking at your cleavage. He swiftly moved his eyes back up to your face, his cheeks flushing red as he met your eyes. He hoped you hadn't noticed. Aegon cleared his throat again, looking a bit sheepish for getting so distracted. He looked at you and chuckled when you mentioned giving him a gift. Are you really giving me a present? He asked, a little surprised. What could that possibly be? Aegon lifted an eyebrow questioningly as he saw you reach for another box under the tree. He had to admit that he was intrigued. He hadn't actually expected you to get him a gift. Aegon looked at the box in your hand with a mixture of surprise and curiosity. He honestly hadn't expected a gift from you, and he was now wondering what would be inside the box you're giving him. He took the box in his hand, his fingers brushing against yours and causing a shiver through his body. Thank you, he said quietly, looking up at you. May I open it? Aegon's jaw dropped as he opened the box and saw the exquisite dagger inside. It was beautiful, a dagger worthy of a king. The hilt was made from gold and was adorned with dragon-shaped pommel and gemstones that were the colour of his dragon's scales. The blade was of Valyrian steel, with a faint hint of gold, and was engraved with the image of flames. The hilt was wrapped in a leather sheath, embossed with the image of Sunfire, his dragon. Gods, he breathed, his eyes wide. Aegon stared at the dagger for a few more moments, still in awe. Like it? I love it, he said, his eyes still fixed on the golden weapon. This is... wow. He looked up at you with an incredulous expression, feeling both surprised and extremely pleasantly. You got this for me? Aegon was speechless, his heart swelling with a mixture of emotions. He looked at the dagger in his hands and then up at you, his eyes full of gratitude and awe. Months? Gods, I can't believe you did this for me, he said, his voice low and heavy. No one has ever done anything like this for me before. He was suddenly struck by the realization, the time, effort and emotion you had put into the gift you were giving him. It was a gesture he had never experienced before, and it left him feeling both humbled and grateful. Aegon reached out, impulsively taking your hand in his own. Thank you, he said quietly, his voice catching in his throat. I'll cherish this, always. Aegon was caught off guard by the sudden hug, but quickly found himself wrapping his arms around you in return. He held you close, feeling the warmth of your body against his, and the softness of your hair pressed against his chest. Merry Christmas Eve, he repeated, his voice barely above a whisper. He felt a strange stirring inside him as he held you in his arms. The closeness of your bodies and the warmth of your breath on his face made Aegon's heart race. He was reminded again of how attractive you were, with your soft skin and vibrant gaze. The desire to kiss you was suddenly overwhelming. His eyes met yours, and he could feel a magnetic pull between the two of you. He let out a low breath, unable to resist the urge he was feeling. He slowly started to lean in towards you, closing the space between your mouths. Aegon's lips met yours gently at first, testing the waters and gauging your reaction. His heart was racing as he savoured the unexpected but welcome sensation of your lips against his. He tentatively brought a hand up to your face, his fingertips tracing the curve of your cheek as he slowly deepened the kiss, his tongue seeking entrance to your mouth. The heat grew more intense between you, as his tongue slid past your lips and met yours. Aegon's mind was racing. He could feel the desire and need building within him as he explored your mouth with his tongue. He brought his other hand to your waist and pulled you closer to him, unable to get enough of the feel of your body pressed against his. The kiss was becoming more urgent and desperate as the minutes passed. He groaned softly, the sound muffled by your mouths, as his hands began to roam over your sides and back, hungry for the feel of your curves. He held you so close that he felt like he could merge with you, wanting to devour you entirely. Aegon broke the kiss for a moment, panting heavily as he tried to catch his breath. He stared at you with a mixture of desire and almost disbelief, his eyes roaming over your face and taking in your flushed cheeks and swollen lips. God, you're beautiful, he whispered, still holding you tight against him. His body was still thrumming with adrenaline and want, his mind clouded by the heady effect of your presence. He leaned forward and began to kiss a line down your neck, nipping and biting gently in between kisses, intoxicated by the taste and smell of your skin.